right? It's a 4 ingredient and a 5 ingredient. Now I could have produced that for pennies on the dollar, but that's not the point. So my difference in Layne and the difference between Layne and I is I'm that guy. Layne's the guy that's going to throw a bunch of sucralose and aspartame and all the synthetics and the red and the blue number fives into a product to
that all factors in. But the reason I bring that up is because I remember, I think there was maybe a dispute between you and Layne Norton, or maybe some disagreements about some things. And I think you probably have different philosophies. I don't know the details of it, but I see you chuckling. So maybe there's more to it.
I'm always happy to talk about Dr. Layne.
Okay. So, well, maybe that is something to go into. So what would you say? Because I think his views are very representative of that evidence-based industry. Where are some things that maybe you disagree with him or that industry in terms of the nutritional approach?
I would disagree with that. I think in many ways, Layne's issue with me has nothing to do with fundamental nutrition and dietetics principles. Layne's issue with me always seemed more personal. Layne was saying negative things about me simply because I believe I rose to prominence inside any sport. It happened to be the sport of MMA, and I became rather popular. I was on the Joe Rogan show twice, and Layne would say bad things about guys like me or guys like Rob Wolf, and Rogan only like getting people that confirm his bias on the show. And people were like, Layne, why aren't you on Rogan next? And he would say like even kind of like shade Rogan back in the early days. And that's all out there on Twitter. People can certainly find it and do a search of Layne's tweets. You'll see. Most of his stuff I don't disagree with, which means most of my stuff is very similar, probably similar macro ratios, although we talk about micronutrient sufficiency before macros really matter, because we try and educate people on eating healthful, high net nutrient foods, avoiding the highly palatable, low net nutrient foods, right? So that's more of our education approach, but we probably end up in a similar macro ratio. I disagree with artificial sweeteners, let's say, and preservatives and all the extras that are not necessary. Now, I work in the higher level of the fitness industry with some of the largest fitness-based companies on the planet. And I understand, and I'm sat in the board meetings, in the R&D meetings, and I understand the price point of sucralose as opposed to maybe a monk fruit. I understand the time and the level of expertise and the care and integrity, I believe, of the individuals in that room when we do decide to put out a product. Now, artificial sweeteners and all these preservatives, these do nothing for the human, for the end user. They simply pad the margin of the company. We're all here to make money, but we can make money through over delivering on value to the end user. Like I have a cold process cross flow microfiltered whey protein isolate that's organic, and our sweetener is vanilla bean in the vanilla and cacao bean in the cacao, and that's it. Right? It's a 4 ingredient and a 5 ingredient. Now I could have produced that for pennies on the dollar, but that's not the point. So my difference in Layne and the difference between Layne and I is I'm that guy. Layne's the guy that's going to throw a bunch of sucralose and aspartame and all the synthetics and the red and the blue number fives into a product to squeeze the end user. Now, I don't disrespect the end user like that. That's the difference. He's that guy. I'm this guy. So he threw shade at me in the very beginning. I never said anything bad about him, really, but he continues on. Now, I'm happy to go deeper into the difference in personalities between Layne and I, but I don't find Layne to be a credible or honorable human. And I think that detracts from his work, which is fine enough, but it's more of a blank bodybuilding, lazier style than truly educating the end user in how the human body actually works and how it should be fed, the importance of high net nutrient foods, micronutrients, and phytochemicals. That type of approach, I believe, is more effective long-term. So that's my little diatribe or response.
Yeah, no, that's interesting.
I've never spoken about it before, really, like that.
Yeah, I didn't. That's what I was going to say. I didn't know it really was to that level, but it is interesting what you say about like the Joe Rogan. I know that Layne had thrown, I guess you could say, shade towards Joe in the past. And I was actually thinking this because I watched not a ton of Joe Rogan, but a decent amount. I like, his podcast. And I was thinking, when you're at that level where it obviously benefits people to go on his show. I wonder how authentic he feels people can be with him. And even, at your level of success, or even at Layne's, like, and this is not a fitness topic as much as it is just like an interpersonal topic. But when you have that much success, you probably wonder, are people being real with me? And Layne's not the only person where I've seen people maybe crap on Joe Rogan, but then they have the opportunity to go on and then they act like, oh, we're such good friends. You see that a lot just because obviously there's an incentive there. So I just wonder at your level of success or Joe Rogan's, if it's hard to, I don't know, like choose your friends wisely.
Well, I'd say it's a matter of integrity. When I deal with Joe, it's straightforward. That's it. Joe's awesome. To be on Joe's show is an amazing boost to the career. But I disagree with a lot of what Joe says about maybe keto or extreme carbs or the higher fluctuation of dietary principles. I'm more of a slow and steady swing the axe kind of guy. And I can support that through evidence. But Joe knows that, right? It's straightforward. That's how I think real men talk, people of integrity talk. And again, you look at Layne's tweets and comments and shading Joe, then Joe puts him on and Joe's the best ever. What kind of dude is that? What kind of guy is that? Like, what kind of human is that? That's not my kind of dude.
Do you think when it comes to these things like artificial sweeteners and preservatives, is it more for you that you don't like adding them because there's maybe better options and they're not helpful, or you actually find harm in an aspartame or a sucralose, things like that?
Both. Now, the data clearly shows artificial sweeteners and synthetic toxic chemicals, as we like to say, in the food supply to varying degrees, but more so through time and accumulation, have at the very least a negative impact on the digestive environment, the microbiome, if you will. And it causes a series of inflammatory responses at the very least. We can all, as intelligent men and women of science, we can agree on that. All the data is out there if you look for that data. Now, if you try and say that 300 calories is 300 calories, whether it's synthetics or not, therefore this macro program works, and these two individuals did the same thing and they had the same results over 3 months, 6 months, what have you. You can use data to make that same argument. I don't care about that, because we can have that exact same outcome with high net nutrient, life affirming foods, educating humans how to truly feed them, not to slap synthetic toxic chemicals in neon green dye and drinking that down because, quote, they're an athlete. We're not going to teach that. Why would we? If I'm on a battlefield or dying in the Sahara, maybe I'll grab one of those. But if I have Whole Foods 11 minutes from my house and Instacart delivery and shit, a garden in my backyard,
yeah,
that's how we teach. That's how we educate. So I think much of I think our success, but also our differences, and why a lot of the other, entities, individuals, and personalities don't understand us, is because they're not looking at the same data that we are. We're looking at very valid data. You're a man of science. Yeah, everything I'm saying is correct about the microbiome and the inflammatory responses. And that carries over, I believe, to a more level or a higher level of systemic inflammation that has other cascading effects in other systems of the body. Maybe it's cognitive, maybe it's emotional, maybe it's